Steve Jobs' secret leadership code that built an impossible empire. How Steve Jobs discovered the military secret of samurai warriors to dominate the market. Picture this for a moment. You're watching a medieval battlefield. On the right side, thousands of disorganized soldiers, well-meaning but directionless. On the left, just 300 samurai in perfect synchronization, every movement calculated, every breath aligned with a greater purpose. Who would you bet on? Steve Jobs didn't just discover this ancient principle, he transformed it into the most powerful force in the business world. When we excavate behind the scenes of Apple in the 80s and 90 seconds, we uncover something fascinating. Jobs applied the Japanese concept of ichigo aiki, one meeting, one opportunity. For samurai, each battle was unique and unrepeatable, demanding total presence and absolute focus. Jobs brought this philosophy to his meetings, his launches, every product. There were no good enough projects. There was only excellence or failure. Jobs' samurai mindset manifested through three fundamental pillars that feudal Japan's warriors knew well. First, kaizen, obsessive, continuous improvement. While competitors celebrated small wins, Jobs destroyed nearly perfect products to recreate them from scratch. The iPhone had over 60 discarded prototypes. Each iteration wasn't an adjustment, it was a silent revolution. Second, the iron discipline of Bushido, the samurai code of honor that placed purpose above personal comfort. Jobs transformed this philosophy into corporate culture. He didn't lead just through motivational words, but through constant example. When everyone in the industry accepted good enough components, he demanded perfection in parts consumers would never see. Third, the concept of senpai, the responsibility to elevate everyone around you. Jobs didn't create followers. He forged other leaders. Every person at Apple was challenged to transcend their previous limitations. This wasn't traditional leadership, this was human alchemy. He transformed competent professionals into technology artists, ordinary people into visionaries. Jobs' high performance was born from this profound understanding. True leadership isn't about managing people, it's about aligning human energies toward the impossible. Like ancient Eastern strategists knew, victory happens long before battle begins, it happens in the minds of those you lead. If you've ever felt your leadership could impact more lives, write samurai in the comments. And if you're not part of this archaeological expedition yet, subscribe to the channel now. Why Jobs' obsession with invisible details created a trillion-dollar empire. Here's something that will completely shift your perspective on high performance. In 1972, archaeologists discovered that pyramid builders in Egypt polished stones that would remain buried forever, invisible to human eyes. Why? Because they understood a secret that Steve Jobs rediscovered 3,000 years later: invisible excellence creates visible energy. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was 90 days from bankruptcy, but instead of focusing only on what everyone could see, marketing, sales, partnerships, he dove into the invisible. He spent months redesigning the interior of the first iMac, circuits no consumer would ever see. His engineers protested, "Steve, this is a waste of time and money." His response? "If it's not beautiful inside, it can't be beautiful outside." This mindset comes directly from Renaissance master craftsmen. Leonardo da Vinci drew muscles and bones in his paintings with surgical precision, knowing they'd be covered by layers of paint. Michelangelo sculpted details on the backs of statues that would be placed against walls. They knew that invisible perfection feeds the soul of the work, creating energy people feel but cannot explain. Jobs applied this principle to every aspect of Apple. Product packaging was designed to create an almost ritualistic unboxing experience. Button-click sounds were tested hundreds of times. The internal curvature of products followed mathematical proportions found in nature, all because he understood that humans possess subconscious intelligence that detects quality at levels our rational mind cannot process. Jobs' discipline with invisible details created what psychologists call the halo effect, when excellence in one invisible area positively contaminates all other visible areas. Customers bought Apple products not just for functionality, but for the inexplicable feeling they were acquiring something transcendental. This was neuroscience applied through ancient philosophy. This obsession generated measurable results. Apple became the world's most valuable company not by selling more products, but by selling products that carried emotional energy. Jobs discovered that when you perfect the invisible, the visible becomes magnetic. When you master details nobody sees, you create impact everyone feels. If you've realized that your attention to invisible details could be your differentiator, write "invisible" in the comments. Like this video if you're discovering secrets nobody taught you before. How Jobs used Spartan strategy to transform failures into genius fuel. Let's travel to 480 BC. Leonidas and his 300 Spartan warriors are surrounded by over 100,000 Persians at Thermopylae. Defeat is mathematically certain, but something extraordinary happens. Instead of despair, lethal serenity emerges. The Spartans don't see imminent defeat, they see an opportunity for transcendence. Steve Jobs discovered this same secret and transformed it into the most powerful weapon of his leadership. In 1985, Jobs was expelled from the very Apple he had created. 12 years building a company, and suddenly, he was on the outside, looking in. Most leaders would have shattered. Jobs did something different. He treated this expulsion like Spartans treated impossible battles, as an invitation to be reborn stronger. Instead of bitterness, he cultivated curiosity. Instead of revenge, he chose evolution. During his years in exile, Jobs applied the Spartan principle of agoge, the brutal training that transformed ordinary youth into legendary warriors. He founded Next, where he obsessively experimented with technical perfection. He bought Pixar, where he learned the art of storytelling that touches the human soul. Each failure, each criticism, each obstacle became fuel for his next evolution. Spartans had a concept called mol and lab, come and take them. It was a declaration that external pressure only strengthened internal resolve. Jobs internalized this philosophy. When he returned to Apple in 1997, he didn't come back as the same man who had left. He returned as a leader who had transformed his failures into applied wisdom, his scars into superpowers. Jobs' Spartan mentality manifested in how he handled criticism and market pressure. While other CEOs bent to shareholder demands and passing trends, Jobs remained inflexible in his long-term vision. He knew true leaders aren't shaped by environment, they shape environment through inner discipline. This transcendental resilience wasn't just willpower, it was calculated strategy. Jobs understood that in high performance, failures aren't negative events that happen despite success, they're essential ingredients that fuel success. Like ancient alchemists transformed common metals into gold, he transformed defeats into even greater victories. If you've ever transformed a failure into fuel for something greater, write Spartan in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, we have much more success archaeology ahead. What if Jobs discovered the secret code of cathedral builders to create eternal legacies? Get ready to discover perhaps the deepest secret behind Steve Jobs' transcendental leadership. In 1347, at the height of Notre Dame Cathedral's construction, a historian asked 3 workers what they were doing. The first replied, "Carrying stones." The second said, "Earning money to support my family." The third, with shining eyes, declared, "I'm building a house for God that will inspire humanity for 1,000 years. Jobs discovered how to create this third type of mentality in every person around him. Jobs' genius wasn't just in creating revolutionary products, but in transforming work into sacred mission. When he spoke about Apple, he used language that medieval master builders would immediately recognize. He wasn't selling computers, he was democratizing the power of technology. He wasn't creating phones, he was putting the universe in people's pockets. This wasn't marketing rhetoric, this was psychological alchemy. Cathedral builders worked knowing they would never see their complete works. Entire generations dedicated whole lives to projects spanning centuries. Jobs applied this temporal perspective in an industry obsessed with quarterly results. He measured success not in fiscal quarters, but in decades of cultural impact. When creating a product, he thought about how it would influence humanity 50 years later. This legacy vision completely transformed leadership dynamics. People didn't work for jobs, they worked through jobs towards something infinitely greater than any individual. Like ancient master builders who carved secret symbols into cathedral stones, Jobs left his essence impregnated in every Apple detail. It wasn't just a company, it was a technological cathedral in perpetual construction. Most fascinating is how Jobs managed to transmit this consciousness of eternity to daily decisions. Each meeting, each product, each interaction carried the weight of contributing to something immortal. His employees report working with intensity and purpose they had never experienced. It was as if each person discovered their own infinite potential through shared vision. Jobs understood that truly transformational leaders don't just build companies or products, they build cultures that transcend their own existence. Like cathedrals that continue inspiring centuries after their creators' deaths, Apple continues carrying the essence of his vision, proving that some leaders don't die, they become eternal through the impact they created. If you feel called to build something that transcends your own existence, write cathedral in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to discover their transcendental leadership potential.